distinguished panel here of protectors of the land, protectors of the air, protectors of the fire, and protectors of the water in our endless battle against mining. Indigenous Environmental Network from the Oneida Nation, who would also like to say a few words and welcome to this plenary session. Sayoko.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for this panel, and thank you for coming to the Indigenous Environmental Network. My name is Sayogla Kindness. I come from the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, so Sayogla Niyon Gets, Lenanyantani Wikitavoda, Oniote Agani. I used to work for the Indigenous Environmental Network as their mining organizer back in the late 90s. And then now I transitioned to a board of director position with IEN. But I also work for an organization called the Western Mining Action Network. And they're a network of activist community people who are fighting to protect Mother Earth from mining. And so a lot of indigenous people are a part of that network. And so I passed out some flyers because we're having an upcoming conference. There's travel scholarships, and there's an opportunity for us to meet together with not only scientists and legal experts, but to also meet together as indigenous people in the Indigenous Caucus that's held during that time. So I want to invite each and every one of you to that. I have flyers about it that I passed out. It's in September. However, we're accepting applications. The deadline has passed, but we're extending it for anybody in that. And I just wanted to make sure that I announce that because it's a big event. It only happens every other year. And so it's a great opportunity for us to gather and discuss mining more in depth with one another, because it's a lot of mining activists that come together around
their legacy. And then, of course, doing the lobbying efforts as council members. We set meetings with congressional leaders, and we've been going up and down the hallways and making sure our voices are heard at that level. So, like my colleague here said, everybody's effort means something. The fire, the sweat lodge, that's where it starts. It doesn't, for me, the way I was raised, it starts kind of here too, but the foundation is within your ceremonies and what skill you have. Do you have writing skill? Do you have speaking skill? Do you have cooking skills? All those things add into the movement. I'm getting old in this movement, but as long as we can keep recruiting and having active people. One of the ladies here, they just went to another workshop, but this is one of her first times at one of these things, and we're empowering her. So your knowledge and your work, Thank you.
I too work fighting against extractive industries. Like I said, I'm from Acoma Pueblo in New Mexico, fighting an 80-year legacy of uranium mining, fighting this struggle all those years. The first uranium that was used in testing the weaponry that was used in the atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki came from indigenous lands, from the Northwest Territories, up in Canada, from the Dene Nation, near Red Rock and Cove. The atomic testing took place on the White Sands Missile Range in southern New Mexico, impacting the Mescalero, Apache, and local Hispanic communities in the area. We just had a delegation of folks in Washington, D.C. lobbying for the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, which exposes miners, downwinders, atomic veterans who were exposed during the Cold War in different capacities toward radioactive contamination. It's a monetary award to impacted populations. I still don't know how the federal government can put a dollar value on a human life, but at least it's something that we get back from our federal government and those impacted by the mining and milling and other extractive processes in mining. The other thing that I'd like to address quickly is remediation, restoration, reclamation. What do we do with all these mine wastes? For example, we still have not found a safe process, a repository for radioactive contaminants. First, the federal government was trying to shove that repository down the throats of the Western Shoshone in Nevada, which they defeated, and Yucca Mountain was closed, especially during the Obama administration. Now, the federal government is targeting southern New Mexico, the Waste Isolation Pilot Project, a private corporation, Holtec, that would take all public-generated waste to this so-called temporary storage site. It won't be temporary. Once they put it there, no one else is going to want that nuclear waste. But our local politicians in New Mexico are favorable toward the initiative, although 80% of the public has said no. My sister Leona Morgan, who is from the Navajo Nation, who will be speaking in a workshop here at the conference, has taken it upon herself to address the issue of hauling and transporting waste across indigenous lands. The process of transport of these wastes will be by rail, crisscrossing Indian country, with no consideration if there's a spill. And of course, this corporation says, well, these transport facilities are 100% safe. How many times have we heard that in the past? The other issue is on Navajo Nation. They're beginning to restore, reclaim, remediate these impacted areas. But the volume of, like, say, topsoil near the Church Rock mine, the Church Rock spill, which is considered the second worst nuclear accident in United States history, the volume, the capacity of those mine wastes, mostly soil, nowhere to take them. You know, the Diné people are concerned. You know, sure, they're removing this waste from our homeland, our backyard, but where are they going to put it? No place to put it. You know, I don't think there's any place in the world currently that can safely store radioactive contaminants. The last thing I'd like to address is health studies. I also work with an organization, Southwest Research and Information Center, out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have currently undertaken, along with the Center for Disease Control, the Agency for Toxic Disease Registry, an arm of the CDC, the University of New Mexico Cancer Center, different health agencies within the Navajo Nation, the Indian Health Service, and we've addressed 2 health studies. One has been a kidney study among former uranium miners, because we found a correlation with cancer-related illnesses with renal failure in these mining populations. And the conclusions of that kidney study all point to radioactive contamination. And the concern, you know, in the metabolism, in the genetics of this mining population, are we passing it to future generations? Recently, another health study called the Navajo Birth Cohort Study, where we have about 1,500 participants, birth mothers, fathers, and children who live in close proximity to abandoned mines and mills. On the Navajo Nation, there are at least still 1,000 abandoned uranium mines that have not been cleaned up. And preliminary results from that study, the hypothesis is, what's the impact to mothers who live in these abandoned mined areas that have not been cleaned up, and how are the radionuclides, the radioactive contaminants, impacting them as birth mothers? And preliminary data is telling us that these birth mothers who are carrying children in their womb, as the children are being born we're finding that through urinary blood samples in the birth mothers, that when they give birth, we're finding levels in the children right out of the womb 50% above the safe levels. We have not fully concluded the data because the Center for Disease Control is an arm of the federal government. This study will be concluded in September 30th of this year, when we hope to make the research findings public, right? And this is only one area of the Turtle Island, the Navajo Nation. We have other impacted areas: Laguna, Acoma, the Spokane people up here. I remember the Spokane people about 9 years ago were told, "Don't eat the salmon in the Spokane River." And my communication with colleagues up there, the Shaw Society, Twella Abrahamson, who will be also here this afternoon to address a workshop on mining, has said people are still eating the fish. So these are issues that are human rights violations. We've also taken these initiatives to the international governmental arena. We've taken them to our brothers and sisters in the South, our brothers and sisters, as we heard, in the North above the medicine line, but also to impacted areas in Africa, in Australia. Australia, the Aboriginal population there is one of the most impacted. And 85% of the ore, uranium ore extracted in Australia, is exported to other countries. And the Aboriginal people suffer from these economic initiatives, as we heard from Candace, similarly to northern Saskatchewan. So I just, like to share that we have that information. We're working on that data. The reason for this conference is to network and share information from impacted communities, and that's why my colleagues on this panel are here. Please communicate with them, talk to them, voice your concerns if you come from the mining community. I'd like to just ask, do we have any more questions, comments? Yes, Leona, we still have about 10 minutes left in this panel as we started late.
So I just wanted to make a comment, and then I have a question. All of you guys can help by writing letters to your congressional representatives. Manny mentioned the RICA amendment. It doesn't matter where you live; these are federal issues. So you can write to any of your Congress people. Of course, there's certain ones that are more of a priority, but just educating them is important. You can write to them about keeping the ban on the Grand Canyon 1 million acres, and also a change in 1872 mining law. You can write to them about opposing the nuclear waste transport, and I actually have letters on that. That's the waste from nuclear power plants, the company's Holtec, and then also to clean up all the abandoned uranium mines. So that's my comment. Anyone can write these letters, and we really appreciate it and need the help. But my question is, for the comment period deadline for the Bristol Bay project, do you guys have a quick website that folks here could just log on and enter an email and shoot a comment today before the deadline?
Do you know? The website is called United Tribes of Bristol Bay, and they represent 16 tribes in the Bristol Bay region, including, I think, Mendalton, where George is from, and Choleo, where I'm from in Bristol Bay. And you could go to utbb.org, and I think there's a link that says Take Action.
Thank you. I saw a couple more hands. So,
Over here.
Jamie, we still have time. We started late, as I said.
Jamie Neen with Mining Watch Canada, and I just wanted to ask about linkages and connections and solidarity, because I know, like in Bristol Bay, we've seen the tribes and the commercial fishermen and like Republican legislators even all coming together to protect that watershed. we're starting to see in BC, around the salmon runs, more consciousness, and again, native and non-native people beginning to see, what the native people have been trying to say and trying to live with, and trying to keep alive. So I think, and Carlotta, you mentioned about, the people downstream who don't understand where their water comes from. So I think there's a whole education process there that is beginning to really take root. But I want to ask you, how do we build on that? How do we make that happen and start to really make a difference in the colonial society, not just the affected people?
Thank you, Jamie. One of the things that I mentioned in my talk was this site called IRMA, and there's a new map that's coming out that communities can sign on to. It will show you all of the different properties you can add to the map. It can show you all of the different properties that companies in your territory are part of. It can also show you whose territories they're also operating in. So if I was looking on there and I was like, oh, Hunter Dickinson, they've got this like Chiseco connection, I would know that they're connected to Bristol Bay, that they're connected to Wolastoq territory, that they're connected to Saskatoon. So on this map, you'd be able to see a lot of those linkages so that you could connect with those people. The group that I work with is a group of Indigenous women who are dealing with mining impacts in our territory. We have a new project that's called Stand for Water, and Stand for Water looks specifically at the water impacts caused by mining. And you can go to standforwater.org for more information on that. We have a petition, and we'll have mail-outs of how to connect with other people as part of that process. And the last thing is that in Canada, we're really pushing right now for Guardians Network, which is Indigenous Guardians on the land. And there's a toolkit at thenatureconservancy.ca that has toolkits for how to start a Guardian program in your community, in your nation, on how to be the eyes and ears on the lands and water. So these are 3 ways that you can connect with other people and Guardians across the world. So we've got Guardians connected in your territory, in kind of Eastern Canada, in Australia, the west coast of British Columbia. These are really good resources for you to connect with others as well. The website for IRMA is responsiblemining.net, and you can just search IRMA as well, IRMA. Responsiblemining.net. Yeah, so if you put IRNA and put responsible mining, it'll bring you to the site, and they've just launched. So the map tool is what I'm talking about. If you go to the site, of how communities can get on the map and push for that, and connect with other communities who are also on the map.
A lot of our information we were able to give to Indigenous Environmental Network, and so they would be able to disperse it. We just have a recent petition also that I emailed Dallas and Tom, so all that information. I didn't bring papers because I thought we would be camping and stuff. So anyway, IEN has all the Havasupai information we gave to them, so it's on their website, yeah, on Facebook. So.
And old school, been in the fight a long time. But I just wanted to say quickly that I've been just sitting here, just amazed and just really, just happy because all these young people, this generation that's so active and so smart. Back in our day, we had no cell phones, nothing like that. We just had to fight Union Carbide in the Black Hills, and we ran them out, But that was in the old days, And it was the only tactic we had was to wait them out, because they're all about making money. So that's what we did, we just delay tactics. Through the court, we made. And then what happened at Standing Rock, because I was there for 7 months. That thing mushroomed us. Nobody planned that. The people planned it. And of course, Trump getting, elected, and all the non-Indians came in droves then. We were the only resistance going on nationally at the time, I guess. But yeah, so you use every tactic you can. And one thing I learned from a woman who taught me back in the 70s, when we were in the fight and dragging our little kids along with us, was Janet McLeod from this area. And she taught me then, she said, look, she was hardcore. I loved her. She said, look, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. We're indigenous. We're from this land. And as long as we're land-based, we're going to always be in a fight. So we have to hand this on generation to generation. So you young people, I'm so proud of you. It just makes me feel good. I'm sitting back here saying, yeah, did you see that? She was on top of that, you know? I mean, it's just something that, we didn't have. You know, we were fighting everybody, including tribal councils, but it's different nowadays. You know? And so I want to thank all of you, and especially IEN, because they brought me here. You know, I get to see and learn. Thank you.
Thank you. One of our most valuable resources is our human resources. And we learn from our elders who have been in the struggle for many years, like Miss Thunderhawk, a lifelong warrior in the American Indian movement. She was one of the founders of Women of All Red Nations, one of the first organizations to address specifically the rights of indigenous women. So time flies, when we're sharing good information. There's other ongoing workshops that are beginning at this point. So we'll conclude our panel for this morning. Can we please have a show of solidarity to my brother and sisters, and my sister Seoklo, who is a fellow board member, would like to say something in conclusion for our our extractive industries panel.
I want to thank each and every one of you here sharing your stories. It moved my heart and touched me very deeply, as I know many of you and the communities you come from and the lands you're trying to protect and the work that goes into that. With that, Candace, can you have your husband come up, please? Just the medicine from the sweetgrass is loving and tender and caring, like a mother. So we give you this. So we have to go right now, but in our ways, we always we give hugs and we also do a handshake ceremony. And so I know this may take a little time for us, but if we could, Manny, take that time to be with our people, especially our fighters on the front line. So if people want a handshake, come through here. We'll move this table real quickly. Okay, stand in front of the table, come through this way, and then go out and exit this way, please. Thank you.
I'm supposed to be.
Good job, Carla. So proud of you. Beautiful.
Thank you for all your work and your work.
It's really loud. Over there. Nice to meet you. Wow. I'll be here. I'd love to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There's H. Do you have the flyers?
There's H.
No, we're looking for G.
I moved this over here. Hello,
I'm feeling slightly better.
This is just an update. There's a switch. There is